All right, g'day, freedom lovers. Back here again with Deborah from the Frog Hospital with a bit of an update of what's going on. G'day, Deborah. How are
Can we go back to 2022?
you?
It seemed to be a better, as bad as it was,
Yeah,
it's
I don't
better than
think
this
people want to
one.
go back to
Oh,
those days.
um, yeah.
Maybe 2019 perhaps, or 2018 even,
Let's go back to 1968. I'd rather be there
Yeah,
than
I missed
here.
that one. Sorry. I hadn't arrived on Earth yet, at least not in this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
No, was I primary? No, I wasn't in high school yet. I was in primary school in 1968. In fact, actually, I'm old enough to have actually seen JFK come in at the airport when he was. This was only about 3 months before the tragic event.
wow.
So yes, I'm old enough to have seen JFK in person.
Sure. Wow, cool. That would have been exciting stuff.
Well, it was very brief. He was in an open limo and he just sort of went past to it when he came in at the airport. But it was just, full house of crowd there to see him. He was very popular.
Wow. Well, before we
So
start
yes.
talking about magic bullets and getting a bit off topic here, let's have a chat about what's happening there. I understand you're still having a bit of trouble trying to find a
Yeah,
place.
we still haven't found anywhere to go yet, and it's really getting quite scary because a couple of the options that we were working on as far as getting into a decent house, those have now fallen away. So we are now stuck with unless there's a last minute response out of all the flyers that we've got posted all over the tablelands for a private rental. It's looking like we're going to get stuck just going through whatever the real estate agents have listed on the internet. And in our price range, that is not going to lead to a good outcome. Um, we may end up moving further south than where we are now because that's where the cheaper rentals are. But it sort of brings up the general question of how are charities supposed to survive in the economic climate that we're in now, which is going to get worse. The public is being squeezed on multiple fronts, and charities survive on the public's disposable income. We can't get government grants for our expenses at all. If we want to buy something, we can apply for a grant, but they do not cover ongoings. So we are actually looking at the possibility that we have to find a rental that's even cheaper than what we're in now, which is extraordinarily difficult. Most of the places that have been offered to us so far are properties that are surrounded by cane, and we can't be in a location like that. We're trying to avoid pollution sources. So it's not looking good, and I think the conversations I've had with people in other groups, donations are way down because the public doesn't have the money to support charities anymore. And what's the government going to do about that? You want charities to exist and to do this work. Well, how are they supposed to do it if the public can't support them anymore? And the government doesn't want to support them because they don't pay ongoings. So, we sort of look at it not only from a personal point of view, but also the bigger picture. How are we supposed to function if we're forced to move to someplace like Ingham or Cardwell? And how are we supposed to function if the public's no longer paying for our ongoing expenses? I mean, donations are way, way down, almost to, we've got 4 regulars that do an automatic deduction thing. But if any of those 4 stopped, we don't have other donations coming in the door. And I must say at this point, a big, big, big thank you to that person in Cardwell, lovely person who's actually made a huge donation to be able to at least cover our removalist costs. I was flabbergasted when I looked at the bank statement. I kept thinking that is this an error? What is this? So thank you very much, Ali. But otherwise, we're so thankful for that because it took a big brick off my shoulders. But as far as the ongoing future rent goes, what we have in the bank is going to have to stretch to cover ongoing rent because donations have almost stopped.
Hmm.
So It's not great. We do have a few more weeks left to shift out of here. There's no way we will get an extension. The new owner has been, how would I nicely describe the new owner's behavior? They have tried to intimidate us and scare us out of our current lease. And I had to go through some threatening legal action if they persisted in the pathway that they were using.
Wow.
So on top of trying to find someplace and having such difficulty with the rent crisis, we had the new owner breathing down our backs, trying to intimidate us out of our lease, which thankfully they've now backed off now that they've been given the legal picture of what the situation is. I don't need this.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having a lot of traumas there. Yeah, I don't know what I could do other than what we're doing here, and I definitely thank the viewers who have watched and done what they can, especially those who have donated. That's really good to know that, you know, this simple conversation is helping people, you know, sort of get things done. So by all means, you guys out there, you know, keep doing what you're doing and sharing the channel around and sharing the word, and hopefully something will come up. Are you at liberty to discuss kind of what your price ranges are, or is it something a little bit more of a personal nature? So an idea.
Yes, I can certainly discuss that. Basically, the property we've been on, because of the condition of the property we've been on, we've been lucky enough to have our rent capped at $340 a week. But if we tried to go into a similar sized property to what we're in now, it would cost us $450 a week, and we absolutely cannot afford anywhere near that. I think because of the lack of donations coming in, and we understand perfectly how badly squeezed the public is at this point, that is a whole nother issue of itself. That people really should be, you know, banging on the doors of their politicians about doing something about this, because all the wrong things are being done and people are getting forced out of their homes and living in cars and tents. And that's just crap in a first world country. But we're hoping that we can find something even cheaper than $340 a week, as hard as that's going to be. The only way we can do that is to move further south of where we are now, which means our operational situation is going to be difficult, and we will have to downsize space. We could end up in a 2-bedroom place. And that we are not going to be able to receive 40 frogs in care in a 2-bedroom place. We'll be lucky if we can receive 8. So that's one of the things that we're dealing with. I mean, a private rental would be handy because you're not paying those real estate fees on top of the rent that the owner gets. But a lot of owners don't want to rent privately anymore because they've had such bad experiences with some of their tenants. So they're happy to let an agent do it. And then, of course, the agent adds on their fee. And that just takes the rent completely out of reach for somebody like us who's, you know, I'm a pensioner. I can't afford to finance any more than I'm already doing. Plus the group itself, with a shrinking donor base, we sort of have to look at the future and say, well, you know, can we even afford $340 for much longer? So we're actually looking for less than $340 if we can, which is
Well, you're saying that's kind of putting you in the Cardwell, Ingham sort of region. Is there a preference to those, whether you'd rather be in or Cardwell?
Yes, it is. Well, the problem is that I still have to maintain a regular connection to Cairns. Almost all our members are in Cairns. Half of the frogs that come in the door still come from Cairns because nobody there has been trained to do frog rehab. So the closer to Cairns we can get, the better. And we're certainly not moving back to Cairns, that's for sure.
So what's Innisfail look like in that case?
Yeah, Innisfail is... I do not want to be in the center of a developed area anymore. I just assume be, you know, out the back of Whoop Whoop at this point. So long as I can get to Cairns in about a 2-hour drive. So Tablelands is ideal, but there's so few houses that come up for rent on the Tablelands. But Innisfail is a great location as far as convenience and transport goes, it's only an hour to Cairns. It's on the highway, so everything north and south goes through there. So, but yeah, it's not a place I want to be in the middle of.
Yeah.
And when you look around Innisfail, it's all cane, cane and bananas, you know, so you're talking heavy chemical use completely around it. So you sort of have to get away. I mean, we're trying to stay away from pollutants. So it means not being next to cane or bananas unless they're organic, or mobile towers. I mean, I'm not going to stick myself under a 5G tower and just wait to see how many years before I have cancer. You know, I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at some of the cheaper listings, a lot of the cheap stuff is next to cane. Just not doing that. So Cardwell and Ingham are starting to look a little more appetizing than, you know, it's going to be hard for our operations, but we can certainly get a cheaper rent down there. So I don't know, unless, you know, there might be something on the table ends that comes along at the last minute, but, you know, we're running out of weeks here. We have to be physically out of here, like find some place, get all the paperwork arranged, start moving all our stuff out of here and turn in the keys before the end of May. So, you know, we're down to 4 weeks. So it's getting a little nerve-wracking. I don't want to make a decision about moving further south than where we already are, but we may not have any choice.
Yeah. Is the likelihood of a temporary location and having to even shut down the hospital something that is being considered as well for, you know, at least on a temporary sort of basis?
No, because that will cost even more money. So every time we shift, it's an average of $5,000. So if we shift into someplace and we're only there for 6 months, that's $5,000 or so to move there now. Our stuff is going to have to go into storage because we're not going to fit an entire facility that handles up to 60 animals at one time. We cannot fit that in a 2-bedroom place. So we're going to be paying storage for a lot of stuff if we can't sell it off. And then 6 months later, having to raise another $5,000 to move into a permanent place. Yeah. For us, because we're renters, there is no such thing as permanent. This is the 7th time we have had to move since I started the group. Because every time we get into some place and we're there for a while, it gets sold. And we have to cough up the money to be able to move to another place. And we're there for a few years and then it gets sold. And we go through the same thing all over again. So the idea of going to some place for a few months is just not on the cards because it would cost a lot more than finding a permanent location now. So it's not, and if we shut down the Frog Hospital, donations stop entirely. The only reason why we get donations at all is because we are receiving animals and assisting animals. If we stop receiving animals, the money stops. And if the money stops, there is no group in the future. So we're in quite a predicament there. And I don't know what the future is going to hold, but it's just looking more and more difficult. We feel like we're being squeezed in a vice, just like the public is being squeezed by the decisions and policies that are coming into play.
Definitely. And one has to wonder, you know, how much of that is by design. You know, we see, you know, a lot of groups that have, you know, what in my opinion have been hijacked, you know, like the Greens party, you know, which I think started with good intentions and has, you know, been hijacked and now funded by people who have more nefarious plans, such as the wind farms and solar farms and all that, and enriching, you know, countries like China as opposed to actually helping where they were supposed to. So you've got to wonder if that's sort of, well, if you're not willing to play with our, you know, more Marxist style agendas, then you don't get funding and you can't play in this world, you know. And as we look into the realm of digital currencies and we have a look at what's happening in China with, you know, social credit scores and things like that, you know, the future looks bleak all around. So yeah,
it does.
Really is depending on the people again. You know, I just did a bit of a thing with Senator Jared Rennick last night.
Rennick, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, that'll be coming up. So actually, it might be posted before this one. I'm going to see how it goes out. I'm still in two minds. I might do this one first because it's a quick one, and then drop the senators up one way or the other. Both will be up soon.
Mm,
And yeah, at the end of the day, he was voicing what, myself and a few others around in action groups are saying is we need more hands on deck everywhere.
yes.
Obviously, everybody's got different skills. I've jumped into this alternative media because we definitely need one up here, and nobody else that I know of is doing it. And if there
Mm,
are others out, well, I mean, George Christensen's doing his sort of thing. He's all the way in Mackay. And maybe I might reach out to him at some point, see if we can start collaborating a little bit more there too, and strengthen,
mm.
the alternative media. That's an idea that's sort of just popping in my head. Who knows? Maybe he's watching this at some point in the future, not now, but later. Um,
Mhm.
and thinking a similar thing, perhaps. So I don't know.
Mhm.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think we've definitely got to start bringing a lot of these things together. And is there other groups, perhaps, that have a similar ideology of yourself that you could perhaps sort of start linking up with, even?
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's hard to know. I guess it depends on what the basis of collaboration would be. So certainly when it comes down to what we do strictly on the environment front, I mean, we're trying to work with CAFNIC, who's trying to help us, but when the everything that we do is completely disrupted every time we have to shift house. Everything, all the paperwork is put on hold. I don't have time for submissions. I've got to do all the packing. I have to do all the research, try to find some place to go. So my time is completely dominated by that until we find someplace. Then we find someplace coordinating all the logistics of the physical shift and all the emails and the phone numbers and what sort of comms are we going to have and all that stuff, supervising the move, and then all the unpacking and setting up. So basically, I've already been disrupted now since February 1st. So now 3 months I have been completely disrupted. So when I talk about collaboration or help, if it isn't to help us find another place, then it's all put aside. There is no other things that people can do for us if they're not supporting what we're trying to do or supporting the fact that we're just getting booted out again and have to find somewhere else. The disruption is unbelievable. The house is torn apart. I can't find anything. I packed my 100th box yesterday, and I haven't even packed all the stuff that I use on a daily basis. So when it comes down to collaboration, until we find someplace else to go, there's no collaboration unless somebody's helping us find someplace to go. So all life stops when we have to move. It's aggravating and it's infuriating, but it's something that I have to deal with. There's no other future. I have to deal with this and find someplace else to go. Once we have settled in a new place, which hopefully we will find. I mean, we certainly can't run a group in a car, then we can look at, okay, who is there that we might be able to join up with that is looking at similar things. And I think if we're talking about joining up with other environment groups, they may not necessarily jive with us very well at all. Like my personal opinion is that there is no such thing as global warming. Other things are happening, and it's not that. This thing about net zero, another big scam that's being foisted on us, that's going to destroy our economy so that somebody can chase this scam that we didn't think of ourselves. This was thought of overseas. So when it comes down to
Senator
collaborating
Rennick
with the
was on
other
about that
environment,
yesterday too. He definitely onto that point that
yeah,
we all care about the environment, but what's being pushed at the moment is more like a case of modeling as opposed to real science.
yeah,
So
yeah. So maybe it's hard to say where the collaboration basis would be, because if it's on the environment, I disagree with a lot of environmental groups as to what's going on. So I might fall more with some of the freedom type groups out there. There's definitely some of these, like I haven't been to any of their meetings, but there's places like the common law meetings that are happening, and the My Place organization that I think has a branch up this way.
Yeah, we've got
They're
a story on the network about them as well. They've started one here in Townsville. I
okay.
believe Ingham has started something as well, and they're moving up the coast. I'm pretty sure Cairns has one as well. If anybody's watching who knows more about those, definitely get in touch with us. We'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
So there
MyPlace
are things
website
happening
has.
out there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I know there's a My Place website that has a list of all the cities and towns and whatnot that have started firing up, which is good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are really want some change. They're sick of the way things are going, and we can see the effects. It is affecting everything and everyone. So that's
Yeah.
that's where we need those people to start stepping up. Whatever anyone can do, if it's as simple as sharing a link, sharing stories,
Yeah.
being and clicking the like and subscribe button is a perfect time to mention that again, because without that interaction, particularly on things like Facebook and whatnot, you're not going to see the posts because they're going to, the algorithm will determine that you're not interested in that stuff. So it won't come up,
Yes.
People need to start being a little bit more aware of just some basic mechanics. If you click like, if you click subscribe, if you comment and things like that, you will see more of that content. So simple little things like that make a big difference. Don't be so lazy as to just watch the video and then move on to the next one. It's not hard to click the little thumbs up thingy bobs or whatever logos and things they've got going for these buttons today. They're readily available, usually along the bottom here somewhere. Yeah, we all need some help in some way, shape, or form. And I think there's a lot of people out there. I mean, I've seen a few at the Rennick meeting last night, where they're just, what do we do? What do we do? And I mean, the senator himself said, get more involved. I mean, I've been saying it. Many of other people are saying it. I think just about everybody within the sort of freedom movement sort of thing, we need more people involved. You can't just sit back watching footy, drinking beer, eating meat pies, thinking you're going to change the world. You're not. I mean, even
I think
if you are one of
it's,
those sporty people, have a look at the footy field. How many people are actually on the footy field putting in, and how many are standing around watching? And that's one of
I
the
think
biggest
too,
problems. I think we're a spectator society almost.
yeah. I think it's also the opposite of doing. It's also not doing, or it's better said, not complying. I get so frustrated when I'm in the queue in a shop and the amount of people that are just, waving cards or their phone to pay for things. Stop doing that. You're reinforcing this notion that the government says, oh, well, we got to bring in digital currency because nobody's using cash anymore anyway. Pay cash for stuff. Don't go along with whatever they're putting up. If I keep telling people, if you've got a computer at home, why do you need to walk around with a computer in your hand? You can make calls and do text with a 3G phone. If more people stop using smartphones when they go out and start using 3G instead, then maybe they won't shut it off at the end of June next year. 3G is better than some of the 4G and well, God forbid, 5G. But don't upgrade to 5G. They're doing all this marketing and telepromotion. Oh, we got, everybody faster, 5G. Your brain doesn't work that fast anyway. So what if you can download a movie in 1.5 seconds? What difference does that make to your life? Don't upgrade to 5G. Go back to just traditional stuff. Everybody's got to have the latest modern tools. Well, if they stop complying, stop buying that stuff. Why can't things just be done simply the way they used to be? All these technical tools and dependency on, I got to have it faster. I can't believe what people spend on these smartphones. I mean, if you've got a computer at home, why do you need to walk around with one in your hand? We actually run our group with a 3G phone. I only use it when I'm in the car for as brief as possible because I don't like my head being irradiated by that damn thing. People can still reach me. I can still assist callers when I'm not home because all the calls just get diverted. So why do I need a smartphone to be walking around with? A smartphone is like a fish hook. They got everybody dependent on them. They can't live without their smartphone. Well, that's how they're going to bring in all the digital stuff, because everybody's got this device that will be used to facilitate all the digital currency, ID, social credit, all that stuff. People are just going along with the plan, and they're not thinking about how they're being hooked in, and they're not thinking about how do I resist this. So it isn't just, it'd be good if people did more, but also if they did less. If they stop going along with the plan, we're being pushed into a corner and people aren't even thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's my personal view anyway.
I tend to agree. I mean, I'm guilty as charged of having a smartphone, but I tend to find I require it, for capturing footage and, there are a lot of advantages to it from a business point of view. But yeah, I certainly don't hook up all my cards and things to it, because that's putting all your eggs in one basket, and that's dangerous,
Yeah.
So, and again, I try to keep things disconnected. I don't want to sync everything up. I see the advantage and the simplicity of it, but for the most part, I've seen Battlestar Galactica, and I'm pretty sure that starship survived by not linking into the hive mind, and was able to survive as it didn't catch the virus that the entire fleet did, so. Yeah, simple little lessons that I've learned from science fiction, and as we move into the world of AI, I've seen the Terminator 2, that didn't end well. So I think, technology is cool. And again, there's some cool shit with AI that I think is very useful. I mean, I may even run the audio through an AI filter later just to sort of clean things up from time to time. And it's managed to save a few things for me because it's quick, it is effective. And, in its in a compartmentalized form, its AI can be quite useful. But I think, if it expands to, Cyberdyne Systems Model 101 sort of stuff, we're in trouble. So, I mean, they've compartmentalized the human race. I hope they're going to do the same with the AI technology in that regard. So, things are definitely getting a bit out of control in that regard. But back to that environmental sort of thing, are there other people around North Queensland that are doing something like what you're doing, but with, say, different animals at all?
Well, there's a lot of wildlife rescue people out there, but I think what is different about us to any other wildlife rescue activity is that we actually do stuff that other groups basically aren't allowed to do. So we're a little bit more connected to science than what a lot of the rescue groups are, and this is where the government doesn't know what to do with us. And I've had some hassles with that. Because, like, for example, when we get cancer cases or we get something in that needs to have a lab result, other wildlife rescue groups, they'll basically be dependent on the vet to identify that, gee, there's something here that we need to chase. And the vet will send a culture off or a biopsy, if at all. I mean, most of the time, the wildlife rescue animals just sort of filter through the system, and that's it. There's not a lot of scientific stuff going on. Where I will get a case, for example, a cancer case, where we're working with a vet specifically on the cancer project. So a lot of these cancer cases that are coming in are going off to have biopsies done. But it's not like the other wildlife rescue animals that people deal with. They just, whatever comes to them, they try to recover it. If it can't be recovered, the vet euthanizes it. There's not a lot of information flowing back into the science community about those cases that come in, where ours, we try to document what's going on, and we will contact researchers directly to try to set up a collaboration about, oh, you're interested in malformations, let's work on this. So we're a little bit different in that respect, but also because of the amount of years that I've been doing this. I've been doing the rehab stuff for 24 years, but I've been doing frog stuff and husbandry for 28. So I have a lot more knowledge than what a wildlife rescue person would typically have. So I can diagnose things. Now, the government says, you're not allowed to do that. But if a veterinarian calls me up and asks me for my opinion on a diagnosis and I give it to them, well, the vet is asking me. I might be a rehabber, but I know more than a lot of these vets do about frogs because the vets haven't been trained in anything to do with frog health. And frog health is changing because of the chemical contamination. So stuff is appearing that never appeared 20 years ago. So we're quite on the fringes there. We're not a typical wildlife rescue group, and that confuses the public, it confuses the government, and it probably pisses off the vets because why should a non-vet rehabber have more information than a vet? So we're really on the outer edges there, and nobody knows where to, we don't fit into the cubicles very nicely, and nobody knows where to put us. So
I think that sort of comes back to what I was saying about the compartmentalization earlier. Everything does seem to be compartmental. Well, you do this job, you do this job, you do that job, and nobody seems to really know what anyone else is saying. And then there becomes a bit of a pissing contest over ridiculous things. And I'd cite sort of Graham Hancock's work as as another example of that sort of thing, where you have institutions and experts, and as he says, well, I've got all the time in the world for them, but they are only looking at things from one specific point of view. Things need to open up a little bit more. And again, it makes me wonder how much of another system of control this compartmentalization system is, where,
Oh, absolutely.
So I think, everybody sort of needs to start coming together a little bit more and sort of picking a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I know in my life, I started off as a musician, and I've moved into, video production and, graphic design, and I've taken on lots of little things, and it gives me a bigger picture. And even within the music realm, although predominantly guitar was sort of where I wanted to be, I still learned to play bass. I still learned basic drums and a bit of keys, and, even the audio engineering component, which again gave me a bigger picture of how my role suits with everyone else, because I understand a little bit more about everything else as well. It helps me integrate, and I think, society seems to be becoming more closed off, more pigeonholed, it's like, we once upon a time we lived in houses, and now we've, subdivided those houses, and then we've built apartment blocks, and we've got smaller boxes going on to what was a larger plantation at one point. Everything's being carved up, and I don't think it's a good thing.
Well, that's the old divide and conquer.
Exactly.
There's two things there. The old divide and conquer, and people are being divided unbelievably badly now. But also the compartmentalization is often what big corporations use that are up to no good, because their staff really are so isolated in their job as to what they do. They have no idea what else is going on in the company. And so they're never able to piece the pieces together and decide that they don't want to work for that company anymore. So, what you're saying is true. The compartmentalization is certainly, with the wildlife rescue area, it is very compartmentalized, and we definitely do not fit that mold, and nobody knows what to do with us. So it's another one of life's things to deal with, whatever. But there's certainly a lot of changes that need to happen, and maybe it's just, at the moment, everything is just chaotic, and it's really hard to understand the bigger picture. I mean, we can see a lot of the trends. Certainly in Australia, it's become very, very obvious who's running things, and they're not here in this country. But how do we fix it? We had that incredible result in the last federal election where so many people were not voting for the major parties, and yet we still got stuck with one of them anyway. People know that things have to change. It's just trying to figure out, how do you do it?
Well, piece by piece, we're down to 3.5 minutes before we reach our
Oh,
maximum time here.
right.
So we might just quickly
Yeah, it's
that up
before
before
we've
we go
sort
on
of
another
gone off onto
philosophical.
tangents.
Yeah, that's all good. So just quickly, any final messages?
Oh dear. Well, the big one for me is we've got to find some place to go. So if you know somebody who owns a house and you're going to rent it, please don't go through an agent. Call us and talk to us, especially if you're on the tablelands. But we have to find some place, and that's all I can think about at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you
Well,
so much for the update, talking about what's going on. So as usual, other issues come into it.
yeah, well, again, it's where we can't be compartmentalized and live in our little box. We got to branch out, and I think that's one of our solutions, at least for a more long-term scenario, is to, everybody needs to talk more and spread the word, and stop living by the media told me. Again, there's another compartmentalized construct there. We need to span out, and obviously, what I'm doing here with alternative media, I think, is a great solution to that problem there too. You know. Yeah, of course, anytime, we're always happy to have you come in there and give us an update of what's going on, and we'll help out wherever we can. Best of luck, and yeah, definitely keep us posted. Hopefully something is just around the corner.
Hopefully, the next video will be about our new greater place.
I would love to do that. That would be awesome. No
That
worries.
would
Well,
be
thank you
nice.
very
Yeah.
much, Deborah.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Not a problem. We'll see you again soon. And yeah, for everybody still watching,
Okay.
don't forget to like, share, comment, donate if you can. Obviously, help Deborah out wherever you can. And yeah, get off your lazy butt, start doing stuff. All right, guys. Catch you later.